Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Lekon Onobanjo. Here are stories making headlines beyond the continent. We begin the news in Europe, where Russia has launched a massive missile attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, according to Ukraine's energy minister, Herman Halushchenko. Emergency power outages have been introduced as explosions have been reported in several cities, including Kyiv. Early on Thursday, the Ukrainian Air Force issued a nationwide air raid warning due to the threat of missile strikes. This marks the second major assault on Ukraine's energy system this month as temperatures begin to drop. Russia has consistently targeted Ukraine's electricity network during the war. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin says a massive air attack against Ukraine was Moscow's response to Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory using Western missiles. Putin had already threatened punishment against Ukraine's partners for allowing Kyiv to deploy weaponry provided by the West to attack targets on Russian territory. According to Putin, 17 targets had been hit after Russia unleashed over 90 missiles and 100 drones, the kind of specificity the president never provides.
Нами был нанесен комплексный удар с применением 90 ракет подобных классов и 100 беспилотников. Поражено 17 целей. Это военные объекты, объекты оборонной промышленности и системы их обеспечения. Повторю еще раз, эти удары с нашей стороны состоялись также в ответ на непрекращающиеся удары по российской территории американскими ракетами.
For more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afua Hagan. Afua, it's nice to have you around once again over this matter. Now, what's the latest on the situation in Ukraine?
Well, 1 million people are without power after the energy infrastructure was targeted by Russia in that attack last night. And Russian President Vladimir Putin has also threatened to attack decision-making centers in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. And this is with his new intercontinental missile called Orshnik. And that means hazel, new hazel in the Russian language. And basically, this is an intercontinental missile that can go at Mach 10 extremely fast. So we'll be able to go through Ukrainian defenses, and therefore it means that attacks will grow. And this is something that Ukraine has been dreading. Now, they've been using the ATACMS missiles. Those are the missiles that were given to them by the United States. They used those missiles against Russia this week, and Russia are saying that their attack, which attacked the energy infrastructure, is in retaliation to that. Now, because the energy infrastructure has been under attack, no power, no water in Kyiv at the moment, over 1 million people are suffering under those conditions, and winter is setting in Ukraine. Ukrainian and Russian winters are notoriously bitterly cold. So this is a way of really punishing the population in Kyiv as we head into sort of a long, cold winter without power, without water, and without heating.
So we know that Vladimir Putin, made quite a detailed statement earlier on in response to the attacks on Ukraine. A few people would think that, as at the time it was warning of the use of Western missiles before it was used, they probably thought he was yapping and blabbing, but then he has actually retaliated. How do you think this will eventually pan out, looking at the statements and the different talks that have gone on for a possible truce?
Well, with Vladimir Putin, with this particular statement that he gave at the meeting in Kazakhstan, we're not used to him being so detailed, talking about the number of drones and the number of missiles that were used. That's not something that he typically does. And I think this is because he is still so very angry about the use of these ATACMS missiles, the US-made missiles that the Ukraine are using, that the US said they could use to attack Russia if they wanted to. He's trying to reaffirm his power and the strength that he has. And that's why, I think he gave such a detailed statement. What we are seeing at the moment is both sides in the war trying to get as much land as possible ahead of a potential head of a new presidency in January 20th in the shape of Donald Trump. And he's someone who has said he could end the war in the Ukraine and Russia in 24 hours. We have no detail on how he could do that, but there could be ceasefire negotiations. And if that happens, it could be that everybody where they are now takes the land that they have. I don't think that's something that Ukraine would be particularly pleased about. And so it's about both sides trying to make sure they have as much land as possible ahead of a change of the US presidency. Mm-hmm. And so how that shapes up for a ceasefire, at the moment, you're seeing a real push in the war from both sides to make sure that they have as much land as possible. But that means, troops are getting tired, getting exhausted. You have Russian troops who are being bolstered by 50,000 North Korean soldiers. Ukraine certainly feeling like they could do with the boost with more weapons and more soldiers on their side as well.
Interesting. So finally, what has been the general reaction to these attacks so far?
Well, President Vladimir Zelensky has spoken to the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who has reiterated that the UK stands with the Ukraine. And it's very much thought that Zelensky will be going to his closest partners, his closest allies, to try and bolster the amount of weaponry and missile systems that they have at the moment to try and thwart these kind of attacks, to try and prevent them. And because Russia has talked about potentially using that intercontinental missile as well, they will try to make sure that they have as much munitions as possible to be able to beat that if needed.
All right, thank you so much, Afua Hagan, for sharing the updates with us. Let's now head to the Middle East, where we understand that Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar held a press conference with Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky while on a diplomatic visit to Prague, where he spoke on the arrest warrants issued by the ICC for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. According to him, it was clear that the courts did not have jurisdiction over Israel because Israel is not a member state in the International Criminal Court.
Yesterday, to make it short, it is clear that the court doesn't have jurisdiction over Israel because Israel is not a member state in the ICC, and the way that the so-called court bought jurisdiction or fake jurisdiction over Israel is not valid from the legal point of view. What will happen in the ground is the most important thing, and we will not allow to breach the arrangement. We will respond immediately to every violation. We will not let the Hezbollah to go down, to go southern than the Litani River. We will not let Hezbollah to rearm again and build itself as a danger to Israel.
Let's also tell you that former British Army soldier Daniel Kyiv has been found guilty of spying for Iran. Kyiv, who escaped prison while awaiting trial, collected information and passed it to Tehran and was found to have gathered the names of Special Forces soldiers. He was cleared of a charge of perpetrating a bomb hoax at his army barracks. The 23-year-old admitted to breaking out of Wandsworth Prison in London in September 2023 by strapping himself to the underside of a food delivery lorry during his Woolwich Crown Court trial. According to Justice Bobby Chima-Grub, who made these announcements during his trial at Woolwich Crown Court, Kyiv will receive a long custodial sentence when he's sentenced early next year, and adds that Kyiv violated both the Terrorism Act and the Official Secrets Act. We also tell you that UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced a new security agreement between Iraq and the UK to smash the people's smuggling gangs and secure the country's borders. According to Starmer, UK will also support Iraq law enforcement to tackle other serious organized crime, including countering narcotics. Migration was a major issue at the general elections in July, when Starmer's Labour Party ousted the Conservatives.
I'm pleased to announce today a new security agreement between Iraq and the UK. This is a world first that will help us smash the people smuggling gangs and secure our borders. The Home Secretary has been out in Iraq to seal this deal, and we've also announced funding for Iraqi law enforcement to tackle this problem upstream, way before it reaches our shores.
Meanwhile, Sweden Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson has asked China on Thursday to cooperate in an investigation into the severing of two Baltic Sea cables after a Chinese ship was linked to the incident, according to the Prime Minister. Recall that on November 17 and 18, portions of two telecom cables were cut on Swedish territorial waters in the Baltic Sea off the Danish coast. However, China's foreign ministry has denied any responsibility in the matter. The Yiping 3 has remained anchored in the Kattegat Strait between Sweden and Denmark since November 19.
As I've said before, Sweden has expressed our desire for the ship to move to Swedish waters. We are in contact also with China from Sweden. Today, I can also tell you that in addition to that, Sweden has also sent a formal request to China to cooperate with the Swedish authorities in order to create clarity on what has happened.
Let's go on a short break on Beyond the Continent. When we return, we will tell you about threats against U.S. President-elect Trump's cabinet, and we will also bring you other stories in the wild. Just stay with us. We'll be back in a bit. And now we take you to South America, where the Trump-Vance transition team said on Wednesday that several of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet picks and administration appointees were targeted in violence on American threats also to their lives and those who live with them. President Joe Biden was briefed on Wednesday on the incidents, and a White House spokesperson said the president and his administration unequivocally condemned threats of political violence. For News Central International Correspondent Afua Hagan, she tells us more in this report.
Several of Donald Trump's cabinet nominees and picks for his White House team have been targeted by bomb threats. The FBI said it was aware of numerous bomb threats as well as swatting incidents in which hoax calls are made to attract a police response to the target's home. Threats were made against at least 9 people chosen by Trump to lead the Departments of Defense, Housing, Agriculture and Labor, as well as his pick for U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Police are investigating the incidents, which happened on Tuesday night and Wednesday. New York Republican Elise Stefanik, who Trump has named to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, was the first to say her family home had been targeted by a bomb threat. Her office said the Congresswoman was informed of the threat while she was driving with her husband and 3-year-old son from Washington, D.C. to New York for Thanksgiving. Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth later confirmed he was also targeted. On X, he said that a police officer had shown up at his home on Wednesday morning as his 7 children were sleeping inside to notify him they'd received a credible pipe bomb threat. "I will not be bullied or intimidated, never," he wrote. "President Trump has called on me to serve, and that is what I intend to do." Trump, who survived 2 assassination attempts during his campaign, was not amongst those who received the hoax calls, law enforcement sources told U.S. media. He has received genuine threats recently, according to officials in Arizona, who arrested a man earlier this week for posting videos on a near-daily basis in which he threatened to kill Trump and his family. President Joe Biden has been briefed on the incidents, the White House said in a statement. Similar hoax tactics have been used recently against other high-profile political figures, including against the judges and prosecutors who oversaw the criminal cases against Trump. Last year, U.S. politicians around the country were swatted over Christmas. Most were Republican, but some Democrats were targeted as well. For News Central, I'm Afua Hagan.
Now, Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum has presented a detailed immigration strategy to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump just days before a looming threat of tariffs on Mexican goods takes effect. The move comes as tensions rise between the two nations over the ongoing immigration crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border. Recall that on Monday, Trump confirmed that Mexican officials have delivered a new proposal aimed at curbing the flow of migrants into the United States. The presentation comes after Trump warned that it would impose a 5% tariff on all Mexican imports unless the country does more to stop the surge in border crossings. According to Sheinbaum, both sides have described the call positive.
Estuvimos trabajando ya como... lo que le planteé al presidente Trump es la estrategia de migración que viene desde hace meses, que se fortaleció desde particularmente enero del 2024 frente a un incremento de la migración que hubo particularmente en los últimos meses del 2023. La caravana que puso...
We also tell you that 3 Americans detained in China have been released in exchange for 3 Chinese prisoners in the U.S. after the Biden administration negotiated a prisoner swap. A National Security Council official said in a statement that the release of Mark Sweden, Kylie, and John Leung signifies that all Americans who were wrongfully detained in China have been freed and are returning to the United States, where they will be reunited with their families for the first time in many years. Earlier on Wednesday, Chinese authorities announced that the exchange, which was reportedly months in the planning, involved the release of 3 Chinese nationals who were detained in the United States. Meanwhile, China has vowed to resolutely crush any attempts for Taiwan independence as the self-ruled island's president, Lai Ching-te, is set to embark on an overseas trip. Beijing claims Taiwan as its own territory and balks at any official contact Taipei has with other countries. Spokesperson for China's Defense Ministry, Wu Qiang, while speaking at a press conference on Thursday, stated that they are adamantly against any kind of official engagement with China's Taiwan territory. Finally, Australian lawmakers have passed landmark rules to ban under-16s from social media, approving one of the world's toughest crackdowns on popular sites like Facebook, Instagram, and X. The bill, which received bipartisan support and was passed, will require social media companies to take reasonable steps to block accounts belonging to young teens.
The question now is that the remaining stages of the bill be agreed to and the bill be now passed. Those for the question say aye. Aye. Against, no. I think the ayes have it.
The issues of harms to children and young people from social media is right up at the top of that list. So these amendments provide additional privacy-enhancing measures in Part 4A to the Online Safety Act 2021. Now, Australia has consistently paved the way in global online safety. These supplementary amendments will strengthen the already robust and strong privacy arrangements included in the original bill. Just for clarity, there aren't any penalties for Australians who gain access to an age-restricted social platform, and there aren't any penalties for parents or educators who provide that access. It's impossible, and we accept this, for governments to completely stop young people from accessing harmful products or content. But we can help. We can help by...
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onabanjo.